Hi there guys, welcome back. So Scotland out of the World Cup at the pool stages, they will be disappointed, but I just want to have a little review of their performance in the build up to the World Cup and also look at what they could do going forward. So in context, we've got to appreciate Scotland's got a very small playing base and only two professional teams, Glasgow and Edinburgh, and they always need to box clever. They can't just try players and ditch them. They've got to set a plan and go with it. And they've got to be really, really smart. So, an example of this is their recruitment strategy, which I've got absolutely no problem with. They're pretty aggressive. They go and see who's available and go and try and approach them because they know they need all the players they can get. And I'm absolutely fine with that because they're very transparent about it. They say what they do and they go and do it within the rules. So that's where Scotland are at. So what did they do? So 2 years out, they moved on from Cotter and went for Gregor Townsend. It was bold. Equally bold. Like I said, they need to be bold and clever. Townsend, relatively inexperienced, had done great things with Glasgow, but they chucked him straight in there. They knew he was talented. Obviously, he's got loads of Scottish pedigree playing for Scotland, and a Scot in charge they thought would be the best call. And I would agree with that. So he's only had 2 years out of the 4-year cycle, remember, for this World Cup. Now, I'm not saying he did everything right, which he certainly didn't. Let's have a little look, at the pros and cons, really, of his reign. Should he carry on, etc. So, number one, positives. Townsend had a clear game plan from the beginning and stuck to it. Now, I like that. He only had 2 years. I don't think he could have chopped and changed. He looked at who he had and he built his game plan around the players he had, particularly Finn Russell. And he wanted to be the fastest team out there, the most skillful team out there. He didn't think he could compete physically, pure power, so he went all in on the skill and the speed. Now, was it the right plan? Well, if you've got a player like Finn Russell, who is your number 110, what are his strengths? Well, it's playing off the cuff, quick, fast, etc. Bit of flair, unpredictable. So it did make sense, really. He could have restricted him, but he didn't. He let him play. We'll come on to what they might do going forward. So, they went all in to be quick and fast, but in this World Cup, we can see that Japan did it better, essentially, and also that game plan has some serious weaknesses. But back to the positives, there were some amazing performances in the build-up to the World Cup. We look at the huge win versus England in 2018, the second half against England in 2019 as examples of when that game works well. It is amazing, and he's definitely introduced lots of new young players who have done very well. So there's lots of positives for him. Let's have a look at the negatives. Now, obviously, overall results haven't been great, and especially consistency of performance haven't been great. And they've ranged from sublime to awful, to be honest. And if you're going to win things, consistency is key. Look at an example like Wales' performance is very consistent. And at times questionable physical commitment, which is a shame. And I think possibly because they've been focusing on the skill and the speed element, you can take your eyes off the basics, which is understandable. And at the big test of the World Cup, of course, they failed to reach the quarter-final, and their loss to Ireland simply wasn't good enough. They did well in the second half against Japan, but overall not well enough. And they went out because they were the third best team, which made sense. So, moving forward, they've got a choice. Do they stick with Townsend or do they move on? Talks of Cotter coming back. Personally, I would stick with Townsend. I think he's very intelligent and capable of learning. There will be loads of lessons he can take away, and I think he'll change and adapt. I really do. Plus, he's got lots of motivations. He's Scottish international. The players like him. I'd give him a full 4-year cycle to see what he does. Definitely give him another shot. Game plan for sure needs review. Do they, simplify certain bits? Do they bring back those physical elements? We shall see, but certainly needs some sort of change. Let's have a quick look at the players going forward. Finn Russell will be 31 next World Cup, so might still be around. Price 30, might well still be around. Laidlaw won't be, he'd be 38. And interestingly, the other young halfbacks, Horn and Adam Hastings, would be in their prime at 28 and 30. So how does he introduce them? I believe George Horn is the best 9 at the moment. Adam Hastings is clearly the future. And I think Adam Hastings could be a bit more pragmatic if he wants. Plus, he's clearly got the skill to play on the gain line and the unpredictable running game. But if he wants to mix up tactics, I think he's probably the man. Anyway, Scotland don't have the playing resources, so I don't think they should ditch a lot of these players and just say, right, you're out, you're in. If they've got time on their side, use them for the transition or as mentors. Let's talk about Stuart Hogg. He'll be 31 next World Cup, so could well still play. Hasn't had a great World Cup. I think a lot's expected of Stuart Hogg. At times he hasn't performed great, but when he gets the ball, I think Scottish fans expect him to be amazing every time, and maybe he thinks he should do as well. So potential blasphemy. Could they use Hogg differently? So I'm thinking we've got Maitland, Seymour, probably both moving on, certainly not into the next World Cup. Hastings, I think, has to play. Finn Russell's still around. So potential for me, could you move Hastings in at 15 as a second playmaker? Hogg's strengths, I believe, are running and a big kick. Maybe move him to the wing. Use him as a strike runner. Free up a bit of, that decision making. Let him just attack. That's a strong possibility in my head. Then you can get Hastings in and Finn Russell whilst he's still going, of course. And if you have a look at the successful 15s at the moment, there's a lot of playmakers out there like Hastings, like Daly, Beale, Barrett, LaRue, and quite a few others. So the devastating pure runner fullback, slightly less of those at the moment. Forwards-wise, McInally, Brown, 34, 35 going into the next World Cup could be a bit old. Maybe George Turner at 30 would be the new hooker. And of course, guys, Scottish fans, let me know who's out there in the age grades, in the academies coming through. That would be interesting to know. But certainly props, Xander Ferguson looks a real prospect. Dylan Bergen would still be around. Cummings in the second row would be 26 in his prime next World Cup, so he's a good prospect. And Johnny Gray would only be 29, and I think he's been the pick of the second rows. I actually think he could do with slimming down because speed was his forte. When he's moving around the pitch, not just a workhorse, I really think he's at his best. Barkley and Wilson will probably move on, being 36, 34. Could well move on straight away from them after the World Cup, potentially. But there's plenty of back row talent. Richie has been fantastic. He'd be 27, Bradbury 28. Watson would only be 31, so still could be there. Matt Fagerson could definitely be in contention. He'd be 25. I think he should have gone at this World Cup, maybe instead of Wilson potentially. That would be a good back row. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about those thoughts, and especially Scottish fans, let me know about the up-and-coming players. Do you think the coach should go on, or do you think they should move on? Let me know what you think, guys, and until next time, I will see you later.